Hello and welcome to the Ghosts and Folklo podcast. I'm Mark Rees, and on each episode, I investigate a different, weird, and wonderful subject. And on this episode, this Halloween special, we are all going on a ghost hunt. Yes, I will be leaving the studio, and I'm taking you and a group of Wales's greatest ghost hunters to a supposedly haunted location for a suitably spooky paranormal investigation where witnesses have reported hearing things, feeling things, and even seeing things. What better way to celebrate All Hallows Eve, or, as we call it here in Wales, Nos Calan Gaeaf. And so, to begin at the beginning, and I should begin by explaining how this episode is going to work, because it's not going to be like a regular episode, and I'm not going to just record an entire ghost hunt and play it back to you, because frankly that would be the most boring podcast ever, just hours and hours of people hanging around in dark rooms not saying much. So instead, much like other ghost hunts I've recorded, I try and do one or two of these each year. You are going to hear interviews and updates from me throughout the investigation. I will be speaking to the owner of the premises, I will be speaking to some of the experts joining us, and I will be speaking to some of the team to bring you updates throughout the evening so you know exactly what is or what isn't going on. And if anything exciting does happen, if we do capture anything potentially paranormal, or even if it's just funny, those clips will be played to you as and when they happen. And this probably goes without saying, but I should get my excuses in now. But apologies if some of the sound quality on this episode isn't great, because we are going to be walking around a darkened, supposedly haunted location. Some areas, the cellars, the attics maybe, are not going to be perfectly suited for capturing crisp, clear audio. So you might hear some background noise, some voices might be louder than others, you might get some humming, you might even pick up on some ghostly voices that were missed at the time. And if that's the case, if you are sitting there listening to this on headphones and you hear some strange noises that aren't mentioned by myself or the team, please let us know. And talking about the team, I should introduce them all to you and reveal the location before we get underway. And we are heading to Swansea, the city of Swansea, and more specifically, we are going to a historical pub or modern day live music venue, which, to the best of my knowledge, has not featured on any other podcast, TV show, film, whatever media you might be consuming. This is the first recorded investigation at the Bunkhouse on Park Street, that's just off the Kingsway in Swansea. Now, the Bunkhouse, as it is today, is an amazing live music venue. Lots of touring acts stop off there. As I was planning this investigation, for example, I noticed I Hate God and Raging Speedhorn were stopping off there on their UK tour, and very appropriately, on Halloween weekend, a couple of days after this episode goes out, they're having a visit from Ghosted, which is a ghost tribute band, which means if anyone goes to the Bunkhouse on Halloween weekend, while you might not necessarily see a ghost, you can certainly buy a ticket to see Ghost, or Ghosted, I should specify. Now, joining me on this investigation is a crack team of hand-picked investigators, especially assembled for this mission. And they include somebody who deserves a special thank you for all of their help with this, and that is the filmmaker Ant Jones, who frankly did all of the hard work to make this possible. They suggested the venue, they arranged the time and date with the venue, and even helped me out with my audio for this episode. And best of all, Ant was indeed there in his capacity as a filmmaker. And while I was recording this podcast, he was also busy filming at the same time. Sometimes we were filming and recording the same things. At other times, we were off doing our own things. So we both had slightly different experiences, and I will be telling you at the end of this episode how you can watch Ant's finished video, which will be online this Halloween, if you can handle any more. If this episode doesn't terrify you to the point where you can't take any more, that will be available on Halloween. I'll tell you how to watch it later. Now, also joining us were two experts of the field, two very good friends of mine, again, with decades and decades of experience in paranormal investigation. And they are also something of regulars on this podcast. They've popped up several times over the years. And if you've ever been to any of my live events or live shows, Ghosts of Wales Live, there's a good chance you've bumped into them and seen them at work, because frankly, I'm constantly asking them for help. And they are Sarah and Leanne from Cymru Paranormal. Sarah and Leanne from Cymru Paranormal, who will be giving us their expert opinions on what, if anything, happens throughout the evening. We will also have the amazing Jordan with us, the business owner, the very kind business owner who opened his doors and let us in to investigate. And this was when it was closed to the public. This was overtime. This was going above and beyond. And he can also tell us some of the eerie accounts that other people have experienced whilst in the venue. And last but not least, finally, rounding off the team of 6. And if you listened to the last episode, the last Halloween special, you know exactly who this is going to be. But completing the party is my good friend and fellow cultural writer, Chris Cara, who, unlike the rest of the team, I think it's fair to say, is not a paranormal expert. In fact, he's quite the opposite. He is a paranormal novice. Chris is joining us on his first ghost hunt ever, which I think will give quite a fascinating insight into what's going on. You've got the tired old hacks like me who've done this a million times now, and you've got Chris on his very first investigation. And with all of the formalities out of the way, all of that boring explanation stuff over and done with, we can now get on with the good stuff. And the first person I am going to speak to is going to be Chris himself, to find out how he's feeling before that first ghost hunt. Is he having second thoughts? Is he wishing he'd never said yes to it now that the day has arrived? Well, let us find out and let us summon him to the podcast. Is anybody there? Chris Cara, can you hear me? Right, Chris, welcome back to the Ghosts and Folklo podcast. Again, your third appearance now, two episodes in a row, and we're about to go into the Bunkhouse in Swansea for your first ever paranormal investigation. The team are all here. Are you excited?
Yeah, I am kind of excited. I'm ready for this. I've been here before, but for food, when they used to do food, and I've kind of been into the pub area, but never into the cellar, and never seen anything spooky. So, but yeah, I'm excited. Looking forward to it.
So you've never seen anything spooky, and when you were here in the past, I'm assuming you had a pleasant time, and there was nothing untoward, no chills up your spine, no icy hands grabbing your neck.
No, the only thing icy was the beer, which was great. Otherwise, there was nothing out of the ordinary. As far as I remember, I haven't been in for a while, but when you do go in, it's quite a nice, friendly atmosphere when you actually walk in. I said, who knows what goes on in, like, if there's an attic or in the cellar, but yeah. Otherwise, nice place. So we're going to pop inside. And last question, Chris, before we get in there and get this underway, what are your expectations of this? Is there anything you hope will happen, you'll see here? What would be a successful ghost hunt for you? Yeah, I think anything small, something big would be brilliant. Actually, seeing a ghost would be fantastic. But who knows whether that's going to happen? But just I don't know, something that suggests that it's all real. I'd love that. I'm quite open-minded, as I said. So I'm going in skeptical because I am a bit skeptical, but I'm open-minded. So I've got no expectation. I think that's the long way of saying that.
Well, Chris, as I always say, everyone should be skeptical to begin with. You go in trying to disprove things, not prove things. And if you can't disprove them, that's when the good stuff happens. And I should say I've done hundreds of these now. I've yet to see a full ghost appear, but maybe now you've asked for it outside the building. Maybe if there's anyone listening, maybe they'll appear, especially for beginner's luck, Chris, beginner's luck.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see something. But let's get in there. Let's get this underway and we'll catch up at the end. You now join me live from the Bunkhouse in Swansea, coming to you live from the Bunkhouse in Swansea, or rather from outside the Bunkhouse in Swansea, I should say. Everyone has arrived, everyone is inside getting ready, setting up cameras and equipment and stuff. I'm outside, I'm loitering outside, I'm skiving because I'm talking to you, of course. You're my excuse for not helping them inside, but I thought it would be good to start by setting the scene for you, to let you know what's going on, because obviously you can't see, you're just listening to this on a podcast. But I should start by saying the Bunkhouse from the outside does not look particularly creepy. It does not look dark and dingy. It's not a dive bar at all. I mean, it feels quite nice. It's got these big airy windows. It's freshly painted, or it looks freshly painted. It just looks like a nice place for live music, a nice place to stop, for a drink on a night out. But as we're about to find out, there is, by all accounts, also a darker side, as it were. We are going to start by having a quick chat with Jordan, because Jordan has some accounts from members of staff and members of public who believe they've encountered, I'll find out myself now quite soon, but encountered things within this building. So that's where we're at. I'm outside now. In a few seconds, I'll be back inside, and the next time you hear me, or the next voice you hear, it's going to be me and Jordan talking about the history of the place and talking about some of those spooky accounts that have happened in the recent past. Let's go inside. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the place?
It was built in the late 1950s by Worthington to replace what we believe was a former public house on the premises that was destroyed through the Blitz. It was called the Swan when it opened up until the early 90s, I believe. Then it got turned into an Irish bar, and it just changed hands consistently over the next 25 years. And I've been here now for 5 years, so yeah.
So you know the place pretty well, and you heard some of the stories about what may or may not be going on in the cellar. What can you tell us about the ghost stories going on down there?
So I first got approached by somebody who used to live here. His family used to have the Swan. They used to live above when there was flats above, and he was telling me when I first opened it, he was like, "Have you ever felt anything in the building?" Blah blah blah. I was like, "Well, funny enough, yes," but I passed it off. And then over the next year or two, then I had staff reporting to me, they'd be in the cellar, they'd feel someone touching them from behind, touching their shoulder, and so on and so forth. And they'd feel an energy down there, they'd hear people down there, they'd hear a man down there and everything. And then it got to a point then where even a lot of my staff wouldn't go down on their own without somebody going down there. They never felt anything bad in the cellar, but they'd always feel an energy every time they go down there, especially in where the kegs are and stuff. They just constantly feel things like people brushing past them and stuff like that, and just hear a male voice and whatnot, thinking that I was down there, but no, I wasn't. So
male voice, and any idea what they were saying?
Just ramblings, really. Yeah, nothing major. My staff would go down there now, and they'd make a point to start speaking out loud, just to say that they're in the cellar and stuff like that. So yeah.
And has there been, because this is all in the cellars, this is all off limits to the public, I guess that means, as far as the customers are concerned, they'd be oblivious to all this, would they? Of course,
yeah, 100%, yeah. We did have a few months ago. There was a woman in here, and she was in the corridor over there, and she was like, I can feel something in here, but underneath me. Do you mind if is it a cellar or anything like that under? I said, yeah. So she went under the cellar, and she came back up, and she was white. She was like, don't like what's down there at all.
So was that almost like some kind of psychic sense, say, then? She had some kind of...
I believe so, yeah. She had a feeling when she was in the corridor, yeah.
And when she came up white, did she sort of give any explanation about what it...
She just didn't like the feeling there. She said it felt bad. It felt like there was a lot of stories, she said, in the cellar, so...
Excellent. And there's a team on the way today to have a quick look there with their technical devices. Has anyone else looked in the past for anything down there? And are you open to what they might find?
From what nothing since I've been here for 5 years now, and I've never had anything like come here. There was a bar here a few years prior to me, and I believe they did bring investigations group into the cellar. Not too sure on the outcome of it, but I do know there was a group brought down here.
Excellent. And you mentioned before we started recording that this pub used to be called the Two Nicks.
It did, yeah. So from what the history we've looked into it, there was a pub across the road called the Old Swan, and this was called the Swan and Two Nicks, which we've only recently found out about.
So, as you've just heard from Jordan there, a lot has been reported here, and the vast majority of it has been associated with the cellar. So, of course, that is exactly where we're going to start our investigation, and this goes without saying again, I guess, but of course, the cellar is off limits to the public. Jordan has very sort of kindly given us access to the cellar specifically for this. I'll be honest, trying to walk down these steps and record and talk isn't the most sensible thing I've ever done. If you hear a crash, it's gone horribly wrong. But I'm at the bottom. You'll be glad to know I've made it to the bottom of the steps, and I was talking to you a little while ago from the outside, and I spoke about how nice a place it is, how sort of fresh and airy it is. As soon as you enter this space, it does feel quite the opposite, really. It's a cellar. It does feel oppressive, but this is not one of those sort of modern cellars, then, as it were. This is, it feels it's an old cellar. There's old stone walls, thick stone walls, the kind of thick stones that look like they're sweating almost, and they've probably got hundreds and hundreds of tales to tell. It's very musky down here, very claustrophobic. I'm looking around myself now for the first time with, the lighting is dim, so I can't really see a lot myself. But this isn't one big room. It's worth stressing that, I say the cellar. But there's multiple rooms down here. It's not one cellar. It's like a labyrinth. And obviously, the first bit you enter has got the barrels and the bottles, the barrels of beer, the bottles of beer, and there's booze all over the place. But I mean, there are shadows, there are hidden corners. There's a corridor. There's corridors leading off this cellar into other parts of the cellar. So when I say it's a big cellar, I mean it's a big cellar. It's like it's practically an entire floor, but a floor that is underground, and it feels underground. It does feel like history is sort of pushing down on you down here, if that isn't too poetic. But I'm here with 6 other people. I think we're all one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're all down here now. And even with 6 people, even with experts, and even with all these lights and equipment, it does feel really creepy, and I can totally understand why some people work in here. If they pop down on their own to change a barrel or something, I can totally get why somebody might feel nervous popping down. And if as Jordan was saying, if while they're down here they hear voices or they feel hands or something on them, I'll be honest, I sympathise totally, and I would also scream and run a mile as well. But I hope. I was going to say, I hope that doesn't happen to me in a weird way. I hope it does, because this would be a slightly wasted journey otherwise. But at the same time, I hope it doesn't, because because it's a bit creepy. But let me get my bearings, and I'll give you another update soon.
Yeah, just the. It's quite a big cellar.
It goes on, doesn't it? Yeah.
What's the story of the gentleman? You know what I said earlier about when I first came in, about a gentleman who used to live here.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's recording. Yeah, if I need this. Yeah.
This used to be the office, the office for the pub.
Right.
And he was just a child at the time. He said he was about 10, and he was in the office. His parents were on the bar or something, and the two doors, the door over here and the door in the office, both slammed shut when he was in it. But that's the story that stuck out the most to him. And he said when he was living upstairs, he had so many things and whatnot. But they moved the office, they did, because the whole family felt things down here and things were happening, doors closed and stuff. They just moved the office. They go, we got to get out of here.
What was that story?
Right down the end.
Yeah.
What is above us?
So right down the end.
Right above the end corridor you can't access. What's above?
Above you is where we were in the gig room by the stage.
Is that?
Just that area over there, really.
Right, okay.
There is, if I go around, I could probably open the door for that part down there if you want me to.
Okay. No one's up. We didn't leave anyone up there, did we?
No.
No. Okay.
Why you had something down there?
There
There's a bit of a cliffhanger there.
There are noises down there, but there could be the electric, but it doesn't sound like the electric.
Yeah.
It was like a knocking.
Well, I guess the staff, they won't go to that bit, will they? They'd come down, they'd turn the phone.
It's obviously a stock for you that they get.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
so
they're happy to come here to grab stock, but they're
It's
not
not-
happy
they're
to
not,
go
right.
to where the kegs are and in that corridor over there. If they got to change a keg, they want me to come down with them.
And that's where you were.
Yeah. Is that psychological though? Because they can come down and see what's here, but they can't see what's up there.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But two of my members of staff, Kate and Becca, are both here. The gentleman down here.
So where is this? This part here is at the street we were working at, is it?
Up to.
It's like you hear the voices out there now.
That's street level there.
That's the street there.
Yeah, that's it.
Could have some fun here, couldn't I?
Hello, me again. Obviously. So we've been down here now, looking around, looking at certain bits. There's one part of the cellar which I should point out for the sake of sort of clarity, where presumably some members of staff have written some funny messages on the wall for us, like a kind of red rum from The Shining kind of writing, which on the one hand, it's quite funny that somebody is sort of obviously sort of prepared for us and put a bit of a joke on the wall beforehand. The downside with those kind of things is that if you're aware that somebody thought it would be funny to prank you in some way, if anything potentially genuine happens, you've always got that in the back of your mind that there could be someone messing with you. But there are certainly little presents, let's say, that people have left down here for us. But on a more serious note, there is one part of the cellar that Cymru Paranormal have been drawn to in particular. Now that they didn't know this, they're about to know because I'm talking aloud. But there has been the sighting of something in this particular spot before today, which I was sort of made aware of beforehand, which they didn't know, but nevertheless that they have been drawn to this particular spot. And while we've been here, we have heard what appear to be some kind of sounds. It's hard to describe, and I don't know if I've captured any, but there sounds almost like, it sounds a bit like almost like a bus rumbling overhead. But we know that there might be buses in the vicinity. But I mean, directly above us is a pub. There's no road above our heads right now, as it were. So this could be a rumble from somewhere, but it has that kind of feel to it. What is holding us up at the moment is that this particular spot, which is at the end of a creepy corridor, it's barricaded with junk, I guess. It's barricaded with sort of old chairs and things. We can't get any further. But what from talking to from Jordan just now, he's told us that, and I've said this cellar is huge. This really puts into perspective how huge this is. He's told us that there's actually 2 doors into the cellar. We've come down the main door where the bar staff would come down to get to the second half of the cellar. The second half of this, it's like a city down here. To get to the second part, and to hopefully get behind this pile of junk to investigate those sounds, we need to go back upstairs again to walk through the building and to come back down from the other end, and then just almost sort of to retrace our steps in reverse and come towards where we are now, if that makes any sense at all. But anyway, so what we're going to do is the experts have singled out a particular place of interest where we've heard strange sounds, where I know people in the past have reported some kind of apparition, and in order to access that, we are now heading back upstairs, and the next time you hear us, I imagine it will be downstairs or heading downstairs on the other side.
Actually, Chris, you just said
Yeah.
about enjoying it.
Yeah.
You enjoying it so far?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to taste for it. Although as we head down into the second cellar,
Yes.
and maybe
Some very dodgy steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't fall.
Oof, yeah, this one's
Oof.
a
Yeah.
different environment.
Yeah. I mean, it's lighter, isn't it? But the air.
Yes, this is the.
Yeah.
These steps are really a bit steeper again, just so you know.
There's a door there which takes you. I don't know what it is. Just a random corridor.
So I'm talking to you now from the bottom of the stairs heading down to the other side of the cellar, and I can tell you straight away it's while the stairs again were a little bit risky, it's a much more pleasant experience over this side. I mean, it's still underground, of course. There's no windows looking outside, so you still have that kind of sort of slight oppressiveness to it. But there's much more light. You know, it's had a lick of paint and things in this part. We can access the other side of the cellar. We can reach that point of interest I spoke about on the last update, but in order to get to it, it's a very narrow corridor, so there's only sort of 1 or 2 of us that can go in at a time. All 6 of us couldn't go in there. And to access it, there's a room that we're currently in, which is a permanent band rehearsal room. Which frankly is amazing. I don't play music myself anymore, but if I did, I would have loved to have a facility like this. It's totally soundproof, so you can use it any time of day or night, which of course adds an interesting element to what I was saying earlier about noise phenomena down here, because if it was something like the rumbling of the bus, say, or something, you would expect a soundproof room to maybe I'm no expert on this, but I would imagine if there was a sound inside the room, obviously it would trap it inside, but sounds outside the room you would imagine would be silenced or deafened in some way. So we're going to see what sort of audible sounds we can pick up in this part. But there's this amazing band rehearsal room now, which you can walk through to get to that other point of the cellar. We're going to have some time in this space now, and I'll give you an update soon on what, if anything, happens next.
So what was the noise up there? Was that explained or?
That's water.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
But you heard something over here. What did it sound like?
Like someone moving a piece of furniture.
Oh, right.
But that's where we just came from. So assuming there's no one playing tricks on you.
Would you like me to open that door?
Can you open it easy? Are you sure?
Yeah, no problem at all.
We'll see further up the corridor then, won't we?
Yeah. So anybody that does band practice, have they ever experienced anything here?
This one's permanently hired by one band, this practice room.
Right.
Because we have got another one on
So
top
they
as well.
spend quite a bit of time
They
here
spend quite a bit
then?
of time, and they also don't like being in here on their own.
Don't they?
No, they did up until, because they just done a bit of work in here. That door over there, they did screw shut because the drummer, the door opened on the drummer,
Right.
so they got a little bit
Freaked
scared from
out.
it. Yeah, a little bit freaked out.
And what's behind that door?
A corridor doesn't go anywhere.
Oh, doesn't it?
No, doesn't
So
go
probably
anywhere.
goes into the next building.
No, nothing at all.
No?
It's because the next building has got a cellar. Just this building has, and it's just a corridor, and it goes down and behind this wall as
right.
well. It doesn't go to it. It must have been used as storage. Because this is originally like a cask-ale keg room
Yeah.
when it first opened. So I presume it was storage, if anything.
It's just bizarre. So, when your phone is telling you stay 1.5 metres to the subject and there's nobody there.
Is that an old ghost hunting trick? See what the phone tells you.
So what are these pipes for, do you know?
So maybe
Oh, gas.
Sorry, Chris.
Gas.
Trying to get out of the way.
gas, yeah, it's used now,
gas.
and all these buildings have gas since the mid-90s.
Right.
So there's no gas. There's nothing inside them.
No.
So, we've been down here now for a few hours. We are going to be looking at wrapping things up before too long, but there are some interesting things I wanted to just bring you up to speed with quickly. The first one, since we've been down here, Jordan's managed to get hold of the previous owner. He's had some messages or WhatsApps, whatever they are, because the previous owner had their own team come and investigate, their own people come and look at whatever it was that they were experiencing here. And it's quite... it's fascinating, really, to see what differs from our I mean, we haven't been here long, in fairness, but what differs from our investigation, but also at the spooky coincidences. There are some things which do overlap, which I always love that when you sort of corroborate things with someone who is totally independent, and you see these patterns emerging. And I'm not for a second saying that it is paranormal. We could have both teams could have encountered the same totally natural phenomena, but I do like that synchronicity that two separate teams at two totally different times, years and years apart, have picked up on similar things. And there are some little things there that I'd like to look into in a bit more depth after this investigation. But one thing in particular that either this team or certainly somebody that the last owner had in did, which I find quite interesting, is that by all accounts they banished the evil energy, evil spirits, whatever you want to call it, but they banished the evil. Now, this makes a few assumptions here. First of all, it makes the assumption that yes, there was something here that needed banishing, needed removing in the first place. Secondly, it makes the assumption that it was, in some sense, evil, and that does pose the possibility, if there was an evil something, then would that also mean there was the opposite? Would that mean there was a good something? In which case, if only the evil has been done away with, and I'm not for a second saying this is what happened, but just bear with me on this one. If the evil has been done away with, then in theory, if there was a good, there was a lot of ifs and buts and maybes with this, but if there was a good, then that good could well still be here. And maybe if indeed anything is trying to communicate with us, and it does seem to be, if indeed something is, it's doing it through sound. If indeed that is, does that mean it's a good noisy spirit or spirits? In which case, that's slightly more comforting than any evil ones trying to scare us away with sounds. But what I can say is, and it's quite frustrating, is that we all seem to be picking up on sounds. I think all 6 of us now have heard sounds in different places at different times. It's proving incredibly tricky to capture any of this on my recording device, which I'll be honest isn't the best. I'm just walking around with a handheld microphone. But we seem to be hearing things above us, below us, to the left, to the right, in corridors, in other rooms, and we can't really come up with a single definition either. I mean, to me personally, when I first heard it, it sounded to me like the rumbling of a bus overhead. Not that there could be a bus overhead, but it was that kind of earth-shaking, heavy tire kind of a sound. Other people have described what sound like straightforward knocks or taps, as they might be, louder banging and kicking. Even thunder and things have come up. We've had all these different descriptions, but certainly people seem to be picking up noises, especially here in this soundproof room. So what I'd like to do now for the next part of this investigation is we are going to focus on trying to sort of pinpoint these sounds, to try to capture something on my rubbish microphone ideally, but if not, to get a clearer idea of what they might be, where they might be coming from. And then after that, I'd like to wrap things up by having a chat with the experts from Cymru Paranormal. So we're going to do that next. We're going to try and capture some of this sort of audio phenomena on microphone. And then afterwards, you're going to hear from Sarah and Leanne, who are going to give us their opinions, their views on what they think may or may not have been happening here at the Bunkhouse. So let's keep those ears peeled. Let's listen out for some sounds.
Every few seconds or something, if it was going over a drain or something out there. But it's really random. We haven't heard it for a few minutes, but previously I'd heard it 2 times within a few seconds, and then nothing for a minute, and then again, and then nothing for a good few minutes.
Well, I don't know if it's a total coincidence, but it tends to happen when I stop recording. So I just press stop then to save the last chunk, and then you said there's a noise, and now I've pressed it again, and now it's gone again. So. Right. What was that? Sorry, about music?
I can't perform it. So I'm shy.
I've heard music is good for energy.
Yeah, so music creates energy. And so what we want when we're investigating is energy. So that's why you'll have paranormal investigators talking or laughing, and all of that is creating energy. So it's about being as normal as possible. So in this room, for example, this is where they use for band practice, or they chill and talk. So that's what you need to replicate,
right,
when you're investigating. Right. So it's like if we're doing, or in the past we've done a hotel, and so certain rooms. So there's no point us just going in there and just sitting quietly, is there? So we'll make a cup of coffee, we'll sit on the bed, we'll do things as residents, or what the experience is, what they were doing at the time of the experiences.
Yeah.
So, because you're trying to replicate then.
It's like role playing in a way, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You could almost even
but
go
energy
in
is good.
costume and things and...
Energy, laughter, it's all good.
Yeah, we've had jokes and laughter.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
singing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Singing does it a lot as well.
Yeah.
If you can get a ghost laughing, you've really done that, haven't you?
They don't necessarily laugh with us.
I suppose, it's all it really speaking, all the singing is down this end of building as well.
Yeah.
Stages here, rehearsal rooms here.
Yeah, because we're right above where
Yeah.
people are constantly dancing. Do they dance anymore, or am I showing my age?
No, they do. They dance a lot in Ireland.
Yeah.
They're dancing there.
So,
Well, they still dance.
but yeah, so you've got this area of the building is all an energy connection, isn't it?
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to be the drummer there.
No, you wouldn't?
No.
Well, that's saying about the door.
Which is why the drummer didn't want to be
Not
there.
even because of the door, because before I went in,
Yeah.
there's almost like somebody being hit over the head.
No way.
Yeah, I wouldn't sit there if I was the drummer. There's no way.
I'm not going to tell him that.
No.
Yeah, don't
No,
tell
I
him.
wouldn't. I wouldn't
Yeah.
tell him that because he probably wouldn't.
So it is said that they felt the door when a while ago, and they screwed that door shut. They did. They've only opened it recently, just put some stuff, and then they haven't screwed it back shut. They haven't. But yeah.
They will now if they listen to Mark's recording what Leanne just said.
Yes.
I don't know if I but when I went by there, I could smell it has a strange smell from
Yeah,
there
it's
as
like a
well.
musky kind of like
Yeah.
extremely cold there as well. With that door, it's extremely cold.
So, yeah, the rest of
Did you hear that as well? Yeah.
That was the rumble, wasn't it? Yeah.
It's really warm down here, isn't it? But
Very warm. The whole basement's very, very warm, apart from
yeah.
and
Which is quite unusual.
it's a confined space as well, so you'd expect it to be warmer than because it's a pretty large space, isn't it? Basement. Obviously, it's warmer in here now because we're all in here, but
Yeah.
nowhere in the basement's cold.
That's a flood, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Or someone's stomach. I don't think that's. Yeah.
Your eyes widened, then they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Review
band
it.
a mix of male, female?
All male, the band who
All
come in,
male.
all male, yeah.
Just gotta pick the drum kit in the door there. Are we waiting for the rumble, are we?
Yeah, what do you think noises in old pubs might be? Do you think there's an explanation for it, or do you think there could be something that, quite paranormal about it?
Well, you need first of all to tick off what is normal. So the noises that you would normally expect to hear in any building. In a pub in particular, you have fridges, chillers, etc. So you need to know what those sounds are. Again, you've got natural sounds from heating pipes, water, so you would know exactly what was normal. So you discount all of those, and then you start recording what you're picking up, the times that you're picking it up. Has anybody else heard that? Is there a reason for that? So you start trying to find a reason why that particular noise has been happening, and you just constantly go back questioning, and it could be shadows. So is there a light in a particular way? Is there a window? Is there a mirror? The reflections, glass on pictures. You'd be surprised, for example, these drums, their reflective surface. So could they be creating what people perceive they're seeing an apparition? So you discount all of that, and then you try constantly. It's just about asking continual questions. We look like we've been in a castle all night.
Right, thank you very much both. And what are your first impressions of Bunkhouse?
It's an interesting building. We're not talking about centuries old, but it's all the areas we've seen so far are very interesting.
Do you think, though, because you mentioned not centuries old, but there's something, we don't know what, but there's been something on this site for a long time, so would going back through the history books and trying to work that out, would that help?
Yes, absolutely. We would look at doing that after we've investigated. So we try and keep an open mind as much as possible. So getting encounters from people who have experienced is really good, because we can tailor certain areas, try and replicate what they experienced. Does it happen again? And then when we start to collate all the information that we've gathered, we can look back through the history, see, you know, what was actually on this site previously, as far back in history as we can possibly go. And it's quite surprising what could potentially come up once you've done that correlation that could be linked to what people have been experiencing.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be bad history that you're looking for, does it? It doesn't, you know, you don't have to look at, say, the Blitz and things being destroyed.
No,
you could be looking at happy history, couldn't you? And people dancing and things.
So it's about energy with the paranormal. So that could be bad energy, it could be positive energy. So here is a very positive place. We've been sat down in the basement where they do band practice. There's lots of positive energy going on here. Above us, there's a room where people on weekends in the evenings, they're happy, they're dancing, lots of music, so lots of positive energy. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there hasn't been negative energy in a place or on a piece of land. And that can also continue, because that's negative. So something very bad could have happened, which is stored with negativity. So both, really.
And we were talking earlier that, by all accounts, a previous owner did banish the bad energy, for want of a better word, bad spirits, whatever they might be. But the good ones presumably are still here. Is that a concept you'd go along with? Can that happen? Can the bad ones come back? Can you pick and choose? What were your thoughts on that?
It depends on what he felt he's removed from here. What was he experiencing that he feels that he's banished all bad, evil spirits and retained just good ones?
So, well, just distracted by that noise then.
Yeah.
That was strange.
That wasn't you, Chris.
No, it wasn't.
I was looking at him.
There's nothing.
It was like the symbol. It was like...
I think it was that ice. Was it the ice thing?
The ice machines are the other end.
Oh, was it?
It's about this in the
I thought I bumped into a symbol, but looking, there's no symbol there.
Right. Well, I was going to ask Leanne next about some of the experiences, but let's finish this bit, because I wasn't expecting that to interrupt me. So, go on, what's my train of thought?
Right on cue.
Yeah.
Talking about bad energy, we just have a message.
So is that what we want? A message to say, yes, I'm still here?
Well, we can't explain that at the moment, so I wouldn't like to say that was paranormal, but we, you know, again, that could be something that's noted and we try and replicate that. Yeah. So at the time we were talking about bad energy, good energy, you know, evil, etc. And then, you know, there was that experience.
And we get a potential proof.
Yes. Let's try and replicate that at some point.
Hello, this is the voice of Mark in the future. Yes, I'm interrupting my own podcast here because I wanted to pop up quickly and explain what exactly is going on right now, because you've just heard an unexpected moment, because as mentioned, we had reached pretty much the end of our investigation. We were wrapping things up, having a final chat with Sarah and Leanne from Cymru Paranormal, and I'll play you the end of that conversation once Mark from the future shuts up again and goes back to the past. But it was at this point we picked up what I think is the most interesting piece of evidence of the investigation, because while we were all sitting there in that band rehearsal room listening to Cymru Paranormal, in the far corner of the room, which is well out of arm's reach, was the drum kit. Now, behind this drum kit is a door which, weirdly, Jordan was telling us, was locked up down here because the drummer was getting freaked out by this door seemingly opening and feeling like maybe there was someone behind him or something, somebody coming out of it, almost like an Edgar Allan Poe story, because this corridor, to make it even creepier, leads absolutely nowhere. If you open that door and go out there, it is just a solid brick corridor leading absolutely nowhere. And unless you're going to use it for Edgar Allan Poe type purposes, I have absolutely no idea what anyone would want it for. Now, the reason I'm telling you all of this is because besides the fact that other people believe there is something weird going on in this corner, as we were all talking to Cymru Paranormal on the other side of the room, we heard one of the symbols on the drum kit crash. It sounded like somebody crashed one of the cymbals on the drum kit. Now, I'll talk about this in more detail at the end of the podcast. I'll catch up and have a chat with Chris at the end about this. But what I will say for now is that, again, I have to stress this, while it might not necessarily be paranormal, it certainly stopped us in our tracks, as you heard from that recording. And while we laughed about it at the time, when we stopped to think about it, none of us have any idea how that cymbal crashed. But anyway, this is Mark from the future. Check it out for now. I'm going to send you back to the past and we're going to pick up with Cymru Paranormal from the moment that cymbal crashed.
So,
yes, but I think what I was thinking was, again, this is all hypothetical, but if there was an evil spirit and you could work out a way to remove it, it seems a bit powerful to me to just get rid of all of them, to just say all evil spirits go. And it's almost like, how do you decide who's evil and who's not?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, is it up to them to decide? And
you know, people do wrong in life, don't they? Does it necessarily mean, you know, how can we define that they're evil?
Yes.
So then we're talking about possessions and, you know, we're talking about a whole different ball game.
Yes.
Maybe
that's why they're hanging around.
Yeah.
They're paying their penance.
Yeah.
Yes. And what I wanted to ask as well, Leanne, well, both of you, but I know Leanne in particular, you've mentioned some things. We haven't been here long at all, but there are a couple of things you might look into, is that right? And a couple of sounds and feelings?
There's been a few noises, a few rumbles. Obviously, we're quite new to the area, so we would first of all check out whether it is something, maybe a road noise outside or maybe an adjoining building that might be causing something like that. But there's been quite a few rumbles that are a bit sort of sporadic, which at the moment we can't explain. We're not saying it's paranormal, but also we can't really explain what it might be. Yes. Also, just out in the one corridor, there's been a few noises, which, again, we're yet to sort of check out what they are exactly just yet. It's always good to spend a little bit of time in the location, whatever location we're at, to try and get a good sense of the building. So we like to scan around a lot and try to work out what things could possibly be explained, first of all.
Yeah.
So, like Sarah was saying, try to recreate those, try to listen out differently for them, try and capture the noises and try to find some sort of explanation where possible.
And initial impressions seem to be head downstairs. Of course, that's what we were told. People have reported things in the past, and that's kind of where we've been drawn, isn't it?
So I would look at a team upstairs, a team downstairs.
Oh, okay, teamwork. Well, obviously teamwork.
Yeah, well, because what we want to try and do is to correlate information. So if you've got a team upstairs and they are, you know, carrying on their normal business, but they're actually making a log of things that are happening, and then there's a team down here, they're doing exactly the same. It could be that they've experienced something very similar that they can't explain upstairs, that is down here as well. So that's, you know, I would look at splitting the team into sub-teams.
Excellent. And one thing I really wanted to ask both of you about, because you both mentioned this now, over where the drum kit is, over where the poor drummer has to sit with his back to that door, is that the point you'd pick out as the most interesting point and somewhere you'd focus on in a full investigation?
I'd go with both sides, to be honest.
Yeah, I would go for both sides, and I would go for the doorway into the corridor there.
So there's definitely at least two points of interest then that you won't come back. So maybe if we ask really nicely, we can come back and do a follow-up at some time and try and
after
buy a couple of pints.
Spirits.
And, a couple of spirits. Oh, yes. Yeah.
No, it would be great. Yeah, interesting building.
Actually, do you know, what are your social media handles? No?
Cymru Paranormal.
Nice and easy. Cymru Paranormal.
Cymru Paranormal. We haven't posted a lot on social media lately, to be honest, but or our website, cymruparanormal.com.
Well, this is your incentive. You can post this when I've finished it. So put this out.
Yeah, we'll post this.
Post it with the video. Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And this is Mark from the future talking to you once more, or rather Mark from the present, I should say, because we have at this point now wrapped things up. Our investigation at the Bunkhouse has come to an end. After that last interview you heard, we didn't really pick up on anything more besides there was the occasional noise, these noises we picked up throughout that we couldn't determine a source from. And the conclusion from Cymru Paranormal at the end was that the bunkhouse was very much a place that requires further investigation, and we will be heading back there for further investigation, and there might even be an opportunity for you to join us. More on that soon. Now, as I've said before on this podcast, unlike what you might see on some film and TV shows, a paranormal investigation isn't usually something you can do in a single day or a single night. I mean, unless you go there and totally disprove something nice and quickly, in which case it's job done. But usually things require repeat visits. And the idea is you go back again and again and again, either until you disprove something, or if not, you end up with some pretty good evidence that might suggest there is something more paranormal going on. Now, with this particular investigation, the main points of interest that we've got that deserve further attention are, of course, determining where these sounds are coming from, what the source of these sounds are. More importantly, what caused that cymbal to crash? That is the one that really is baffling all of us. And of course, there is that particular point of interest that Cymru Paranormal were drawn to, that the experts were drawn to, and which is known to have a previous reputation for having something there in the darkness. We now have three things to really zoom in on, to really focus on when we return, or maybe when the group return with or without me. And that is when they will take, again, I'm no expert on this, but this is when other recording equipment might be taken, more sensitive recording equipment, more specialized recording equipment, more, you'll have to ask them for the correct terms, but this is when they go there with much more of a plan in mind. This first investigation was very much a, let's have a chat with the owner and see what happens. Now we've had that chat, now we've seen what happens, we know what to go in there and focus on in particular. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast and you've been thinking to yourself, I'd really love to go to the Bunkhouse in Swansea myself, well, as a punter, it's open for live music every Wednesday to Sunday, most weeks. I mean, check the website before going there, unannounced, but most weeks, Wednesday to Sunday, there's live music or live DJs or whatever's going on if you just fancy popping in for a few shandies. And if, when you're there, you do notice any spirits, alcoholic or otherwise, be sure to let us know what is going on. And I did mention there might be an opportunity to join myself there and to join maybe some of the others on this podcast, maybe everyone who was on this podcast in the future. I am really hoping I can arrange something at about Christmas time, but this does depend on a lots of ifs and buts and maybes in my calendar, and of course on the Bunkhouse's calendar. I mean, I imagine they're going to be extremely busy as well over Christmas, but I'd love to do a little talk there and a little chat at Christmas time if we can sort that out. If not, watch this space and I will let you know when there's a date in place, and of course I will shamelessly promote it all over social media. So if you don't want to miss any of these dates, follow me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any of those usual places, and I will let you know as soon as there's a date in the diary. But before we wrap things up, let's have another quick catch up with Chris Cara to see how he's feeling now at the end of his first ghost hunt. And so, for the last time on this episode, let's see if we can summon Chris Cara back one more time. Is anybody there? Can you hear me, Chris Cara? So, Chris, back where we started, and it was, I think it's safe to say, we can't say nothing happened. Some things did happen. We didn't get that full-bodied apparition, as it were, unfortunately, but we did get some stuff. What are your takeaways from your first ghost hunt?
I enjoyed it. I didn't have to hit anyone, which is great.
Yes.
But I said the place is nice, as I remember it. Then going downstairs into the cellar, it's a bit creepy. We had the writing on the wall, which obviously someone had done, one of his staff had done, which was funny. But it was quite a funny thing to see. But obviously the biggest thing was the cymbal noise, which was at it was around the point of there's that door that kept opening and kept creeping the drummer out. I was standing the closest to the drum kit. We heard the noise. Everyone looked at me like, I think you even said, was that you, Chris? And I was standing close to the drum kit, but not close enough to hit it. So that, for me, I was like, something happened there, because you were talking, I think, about spirits, bad energy. And then the cymbal just went, or we heard a little noise. And for me, that was something. It could be explained perhaps, but there's no wind down there. There didn't seem like anything would have fallen onto the cymbal, and there was no one else around it but me. And I was not going to, go and create something out of nothing. So, yeah, I think maybe if that was probably the best thing that could have happened, apart from actually seeing a ghost.
Yes, I mean, I need to go back and check the sound for that cymbal one. I hope I've caught that on audio at least, if not on video. But like you said, you were the nearest person to it. So if anyone was messing around, it was you. And I trust you, Chris. I like to think you're a trustworthy bloke. Plus, you haven't got arms like Plastic Man, so you couldn't, you couldn't reach across the room to do it anyway. The only issue is, as you mentioned, there were some members of staff who wrote some funny things on the walls, what weren't there to start with, and that does play on your mind. Do you think if there are people having a laugh and a joke, when things like that do happen, you think could they have done something really elaborate, or is this totally paranormal? But certainly initial impressions, and from talking to everyone else, we all seem to think that's one thing that we can't explain easily, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think you're right there. We do need to look into it a bit more. When I say we, I mean probably the paranormal investigators, they're the experts here. But you're an expert now, Chris. Of course, this is my third podcast with you, and I've done a paranormal investigation now. I am an expert. Yes. But one thing I will say was, I said I was close to the drum kit. I know I couldn't have bumped into it, because initially I heard the noise, that's the cymbal noise. I looked at myself, I was like, I bumped into the drum kit, turned around, and the drum kit was a good, 2 foot away from me. Yeah. And Jordan, the owner, he said, no, I was looking at him the whole time. He didn't move. So that's the one reason, because if Jordan had said, oh yeah, Chris bumped into the drum kit, I'd been like, that's what I did, but I didn't feel anything. I was a good 2 foot away from it. So, and it's just hard to explain. So that's, I'm not saying that was definitely a spirit contacting us, but who knows?
And the way the experts would work in this situation, Chris, is ghost hunts, despite what, you might see on some TV shows and things, they're not supposed to be one night things. You go there in the dark and then you leave the next day. You're supposed to go back until you can prove or disprove something. So now that we have this, we can take this away, look into it, look at those recordings, look at the circumstances surrounding it, and then go back there. So we will definitely be heading back at some point this year. Are you up? Are you brave enough, Chris, for a return visit, a return ghost hunt at the Bunkhouse?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was quite as the paranormal investigators were saying, it's quite a friendly place. It doesn't seem to be like an evil kind of presence or an evil feeling. It seemed to be quite a happy place. So yeah, I'd be happy to go back. And one thing you were saying then is it's worthwhile doing it a couple of times, because yeah, if you go in the night, in the dark, when everyone's already quite anxious because it's dark and it's creepy, you're more likely to hear something or see something. So I think going a couple of different times of the day, you're more likely to get a well-rounded view of what's happening. But yeah, long story short, I would be happy to come back.
In that case, Chris, consider yourself a member of the team, and I'll get on the case and I'll get us back there before the end of the year.
Excellent.
And quickly, before I let you go, Chris, do you want to give your own podcast a shout out as you're on here?
So if you listen to the last episode, you'd have heard me talking about my own podcast, Planet Health, and it's an exploration of the healthiest cultures and traditions around the world. So it's just a fun look at health and well-being around the world. So yeah, check it out, Planet Health. And also the Halloween episode, which I think came out on the 25th, whenever this is going out, that features you. So, of course, your fans will enjoy that.
Planet Health, go and check it out. Avoid the Halloween episode, or you'll have to listen to more rubbish from me. Cheers, Chris.
Thanks, Mark.
All of which brings me to the end of another Halloween episode of the Ghosts and Folklore podcast. And as mentioned, this is the second of 2 Halloween episodes. If you haven't already, be sure to go back and check out the last one. And I do these Halloween specials every year, so if you're a new listener, you can go back and listen to the last 4 years worth of them now. And I also try and do a live ghost hunt once a year as well. Previous episodes have included Newton Hall in Duneva with my good friend Ronnie, or the last time I was in Swansea with Cymru Paranormal, which was at the 1940s Museum. And you can find all of those episodes amongst the 130 episodes now. Yes, this is 130 episodes of this rubbish now that I've recorded. So if you want to check out any of those, please do go back and have a rummage around. And if you don't want to miss any of the future episodes, of course, be sure to press the subscribe button. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider liking it, reviewing it, rating it, and if you really enjoyed it and you want to wish me a very happy Halloween, you can support the podcast by treating me to a coffee via my website, which, as regular listeners will know, is always pumpkin spiced at this time of year. If you'd like more ghosts and folklore from Wales, you can follow me on social media as mentioned, and as well as this podcast, I've written a number of books about similar weird and wonderful subjects which are available from all good bookshops, offline and on. You can find a full list on my website, which includes my new book, Paranormal Cardiff, which is on sale very, very soon, and I'll be talking about that a lot more on the next episode. The next episode will be dedicated to Paranormal Cardiff. And also, I did mention there would be an opportunity to actually watch a video connected with this episode, and Ant is indeed preparing a video of this to go live, if all goes to plan, on Halloween itself, on October the 31st. Don't blame me if it is delayed for some reason, but as far as I know, from October the 31st, you can watch video footage of this investigation on Ant's YouTube channel, which is Beyond the Bleak TV. Beyond the Bleak TV. I'll include a link below or in the description or in one of those places. People like this say they'll put links wherever they go. I will include a link so you can just click on it. But if you'd rather go to YouTube, you can search for it. And of course, I don't mention this enough, but I also have my own YouTube channel where I upload every episode of this podcast. So if you'd prefer to watch it there, you can also subscribe to my channel. And if and when I do get any of my own video footage sorted, that is where it will go. So if you subscribe now, you'll get a nice surprise at some point when you wake up one day, visit the channel, and there is a video from me waiting for you. Now, on that note, it just leaves me to say thank you very much for listening. Diolch yn fawr iawn am wrando. I've been Mark Rees. This has been my Ghosts and Folklore podcast, beaming to you from Wales to the world. And remember, if you do go to the local pub this Halloween and you hear the sound of a cymbal mysteriously crashing in the darkness, ask the landlord if they have a drum kit in the cellar. Who knows what might be lurking down there? Maybe it's being haunted by the ghost of a restless drummer. Until next time, happy Halloween, Nos Calan Gaeaf hapus, and Nos da.